Thanks for your nice talks. Really interesting. I hope I can add something to it. I'm Marc, founder of Voluma.ai, together with my business partner Jack. Voluma.ai is a tiny startup that creates, augments, and deploys 3D Gaussians. I have a background in visual effects. I've done 15 years of freelancing, mainly compositing, doing motion graphics, video editing for TV and commercials and movies, and a lot of corporate work. Also some challenging projects within insane high resolutions, 20 projectors, immersive rooms, virtual reality projects. During COVID, began doing a lot of virtual production, created some virtual environments in Notch and Unreal. And at a certain point came along this little thing called Instant NGP that really captured all my attention and main focus. Was really mesmerized by the magic of these 3D memories and the potential it had. So started creating a lot of volumes, getting familiar with the technology. Along the way, tagged along my friend, my high school buddy Jack. We used to make Amiga demos back in the day. At a certain point, trying to get these visual effects companies involved and showing them the possibilities, and along the way, trying to find a suitable way to deploy these 3D Gaussian splattings on the web. Instead of just posting videos, we would like users to really experience these splats, of course. So tried spline design, play canvas, antimatter, eventually settled on Marc Kellogg's web viewer. And we started speaking to several companies, construction companies, businesses that we thought that might have a use for 3D Gaussian splatting, and listened to their needs and took that input and built some features onto our platform, like annotation, like the possibility to add external 3D geometry, and more. And at a certain point, we actually got to do a couple of pilots for some clients. So I want to show you some of those examples. And let me share my screen. See my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, this is actually our first pilot splat, so to speak. This is a water tower in the southern part of the Netherlands. It's a monument, and the owner has plans to renovate it in its original state, and also add a hotel here. We made a Gaussian splatting from the CAD model that we got from the architect and placed it at the appropriate position in the actual environment, so that stakeholders and the owner and everybody involved could discuss, well, matters concerning the development of this project. They find it pretty useful because it's a way to see stuff in a more realistic setting than it would be in a 3D representation. Actually, at this point, they have already cut down the trees, and they demolished the little buildings around the tower. So next week we will make another splat, and during the 16 months of this project, we will create probably 8 or 9 other splats and make a time lapse of the construction progress. And just going on to the next. This is just me pushing some Dutch cultural heritage in the form of a Dutch windmill. It's a freebie. So we're also talking to antenna tower maintenance company. They send out people in a van with equipment and tools, and a tablet with a work plan and in text and some drawings of electronics. And these guys and gals climb up this tower and sort of need to figure out what should be done in a pretty non-visual way. And resulting in more time in the tower, more risk. By using a 3D Gaussian splatting, could be made within 2 hours and be deployed online. And a little bit of work on annotating. You could create these work plans that would give these employees a more visual tool to identify, right, that's that little box or this little cable. And you can just press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or click on the markers to see a detailed description. This could also be a picture or more text, of course. And this way, minimize time in the tower, minimize risks, and maximize efficiency. So this is probably a good use case for using 3D Gaussian splatting, where it could be safer for workers. Just putting in another freebie here. This is a splat we did of a fair during night with long exposures. Just wanted to show you it's really nice because it was a full fair. There was people going down the rides, but it's like empty now because everybody is lost in the long exposure. So it's a ghost fair now. This is a splat we did from the horrible disaster at the Baltimore Bridge. I saw footage 2 days after the disaster on CNN of a guy hanging on a pole outside of a helicopter, looking over the edge, just trying to visualize the area. And I thought, why are they not using 3D Gaussian splatting for this? Because it would be such a great tool to identify dangerous areas up front, to plan ahead, step-by-step rescue plan, get a visual and spatially awareness of the situation. It seemed like a no-brainer for us in these situations, as opposed to flying a helicopter around with a guy hanging out of it. We are also talking with a startup at Berkeley University that are creating a first responders application, and they are going to use Voluma.ai as a viewer for their splats. And well, I think that's a really useful case. Here's another case. There's a music festival in Holland. It's techno-musical music, and we created 3 splats for also demonstrating the technology, but also as a way to document this nice little festival for promotional content and for future events. So I don't know why there. So we got an empty situation, we have a day situation and a night situation all lined up. And we can create these time lapses on our platform. Here's another one, just a nice picture to look at. Another water tower. Holland is filled with them. This one is already done, and there's office spaces in there, which you can really nicely see. This is a splat we made from some footage we got from the SpaceX Twitter feed. It was just a 15-second video, and it's a nice example of how some conventional footage could be turned into something more. It's not perfect, but it gives you a good sense of scaling, and well, it's definitely interesting. There was a lot of wacky stuff happening in the water, so we deleted those splats and just turned on a water plane in our interface, and well, pretty nice to see now. Also here, there's a lot of yacht builders in Holland, so we're also trying to get them as clients. We made this from some YouTube video, so it's a bit gappy, but also to demonstrate the reflection trick that we're doing, and also some of the marker functionality. So markers can be clickable, and you get extra information. And also each marker has a camera position locked into it. So just pressing 1, 2, 3, you can have a guided tour across all these points of interest on the vessel. Go back to the defaults. Here's our time-lapse example. So we captured this in a period of 6 months. It's also 6 stages, so stage per month. And it's a great way, I think, for construction companies to document building progress in a way that couldn't be done before. Perhaps identify issues during building, and also have a way to visually showcase your work on a website or through capturing of a video in this volume. You may notice that the background is not changing at all. We have 2 reasons for that. One is performance. If you want to swap out entire splats with all these background, it is really demanding on the resources of the playback machine. So this is way faster. And secondly, it helps in focusing on the main part, the construction progress, instead of being distracted by all the weather changes and cars moving around or having different spots. So go on to the next one. Another use case showing a building here in Amsterdam that could be used by real estate agents. You could have an occupancy map on here and see what condos are still available, what condos are out for rent or for sale. You could take one of these balconies and see, this is a nice view, or I hate this view from here. See what is obscured, what you can see of Amsterdam. There's another real estate example. Oh, right. Bar is in the way. The Zoom bar. Here's a volcano that we did. We keyed out all the lava, and because structure of motion for motion doesn't like lava moving stuff, so and then pulled back in the color. Might be interesting for research. Just a cool visual and a nice test. Some more visual stuff here. We're in talks with this campsite for making an occupancy map. So getting real-time data from their booking system onto locators or markers in this volume to have a way to instantaneously see where spaces are open in a novel way, and maybe unlock that feature for booking of the clients themselves and seeing where they should go to set up their tent. This is a capture we did last springtime. An ideal candidate for a guided tour. We could make markers and we could follow the camera along those markers and have annotated information alongside and create an interactive map, so to speak. This is a splat that we did make from this piece of art. That is a commercial called Carousel by Philips. Actually, these people were all standing still while this was shot. Some people were suspended by cables, and there was a lot of VFX work, but a lot of actual effects as well, practical effects, and it's perfect for creating this splat. I think it's pretty neat. Another example, this is just really tiny work. So this is moss and a tiny little fungus. I think it's 1.5 inches high. Just wanted to show this because doing virtual productions, it's always nice to mess around the scale. So you could have probably an actor or presenter walk over an LED screen that has this virtual environment on it and walk behind this fungus. Or, of course, you need to separate the front and the back plate for that. But there's a lot of possibility in creating realistic virtual environments using 3D Gaussian splattings. Here's an example of footage that we took from an archive site that has old aerial footage. This is Fort Worth in the 50s. Might be of interest to historians or city planners or production designers for movies to really get a grasp of how the city was looking at that point in time, or just load it up in Unreal and walk around like Godzilla. That is also nice. Almost at the end. This is more footage we took. This is the Brandenburger Gate in Berlin, just after capitulation. I don't know how useful this would be, but it's interesting. See, it's some more of that. More. Almost at the end of my presentation. So this is our work in progress, just to show that we're continuously building on features. Actually, everything on our platform revolves around markers. So a marker could be a Gaussian splat, it could be a text, it could be an image, it could be a 3D object, it could be a sky dome. And by scrolling my mouse, I can now sort of tell a story using Gaussian splats and different assets. The story doesn't make any sense. It's just a showcase of, excuse me, of some of the features of the platform. So I'm just scrolling down, and oh wait, there's still a marker up there. Need to fix that. So we're unloading and loading in new splats in a sort of continuous storytelling way. And lastly, call this Four Seasons. This is the little project that we're working on. There's a castle here in the neighborhood, captured a winter scene, a spring scene that we see now, and a summer scene. And we're still thinking about skipping autumn because it's always raining, but we probably need to get it in there. But now we just skip right ahead to winter again. So it loops. And well, I think that's about it. That's showcasing our features.
Cool. Thank you, Marc. So this is really great because I know that, I saw your construction time lapse. I thought that was really fascinating, and I went to your website and I wasn't sure. So can you tell me, is this a platform that other people can use, or is this sort of an internal platform that you use for your client-facing business?
Yeah, it started out as an internal platform because we wanted to we approach several companies and suggest, hey, can we do something together? I think it could be useful for your business. And while building on those features onto our platform, we kind of saw, hey, wait, this might be interesting to, I don't know, go public or sort of, and allow people to deploy their scenes and do annotations. So we're working on that at this moment. I think it's already done, but it's mostly the business part behind it, the billing and the stuff. We plan on giving a freebie as well, but there should be several tiers, and that's kind of, sales isn't our forte. So we're struggling a bit with that.
Okay. Okay.
So,
I mean, it looks like an amazing platform, and I think there's going to be a lot of interest. Do you have any idea when you might be offering it to the public, or is it still too early to say?
I would say within the next month. And it's way overdue. We should be emailing people on our wait list because they could already enter and try out the beta, just a sort of closed beta, and try out these features ourselves. But what's mostly missing at this point, it's still quite a technical platform. So we would like to make some stuff easier, like having an asset browser and stuff like that. At this point, it's still mostly uploading splats to a server and then selecting a URL, and then pop, the splat is loaded. But in the best case, you would have an asset browser to do that. So that's our main next step.
I mean, the viewing of the splats looks really beautiful. And at the beginning of your talk, you kind of mentioned that you had maybe evaluated some of the web viewers for splats. I think you mentioned Antimatter 15, and then you mentioned Marc Kellogg. I've looked at his work because he supports at least 2 levels of spherical harmonics. Right. Is that sort of the render? Because there's a question actually I can segue into, which is, are you using WebXR or taking advantage of Web GPU for your rendering?
I'm thinking at this point we're just using Web GPU. We opted for Marc Kellogg's viewer because it seemed to be most compatible at the time, and he had a lot of updates on a daily basis. So there, it was a really active project, and it keeps us active too, because on a almost daily basis we are implementing new features and updating the software. So we did also try Spline, which is a very nice and good software, but it doesn't work on all mobiles. So we kind of run into a wall at that point, because we want to be as compatible as possible. Yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think that many of us are looking, again, I think there's going to be a lot of interest in your product, because I think a lot of us are looking for a really good web viewer for Gaussian splats that really shows off how good they are. It looks like you've got a good option there. Can you tell me, you mentioned a bit about your time lapses, and you mentioned, can you talk a little bit more about how you do those time lapses? You mentioned that you maybe break them up into pieces so that you're not changing the far distance, but just updating the central object. But could you talk a little bit more about how you do that?
Yeah, sure. So actually, we captured, of course, full scenes, six, or it's 8 in the meantime, but took the nicest scene with the best fidelity in the distance, and I could actually show you if you like to see.
Yeah, we'd love to see.
So I have to wait for it to load again, because things were always reloaded. Oh, wrong user. And going into edit mode. Still wrong user. Sorry about this, guys.
No problem. I think just to prepare your mind, I think the next question that people are going to want to know about is about your tags and how you're anchoring them and how you're annotating the splats.
Yeah. So actually, I could show you that the base splat is just a splat with a hole in it.
I think you're not sharing your screen at the moment.
Oh, I'm not?
No.
Okay, here it goes.
There we go. Okay, awesome. Yeah, we can see it.
So here you see that the base splat is actually just a splat with a hole in it.
Okay, yeah.
And all the other splats are just pieces of their time lapses. So I just we just cropped this area, the specific area from all those different stages, added them in as markers and as splat markers. It's just a marker that you can attach a splat to, and then align them. And well, there's a system in our on our platform that can fade between those splat markers. So that's what actually is happening.
Okay, and the markers that you're mentioning, so you're anchoring splats to them. Are those the same markers that tags get anchored to as well? Is it the same system?
Exactly. I could add a tag or a marker here on this point. I could give it an order, a parenting system. You could save the camera position for when the splat is active. So if I want to, when I click on that marker, I want to have the camera at this position, I just save the camera position. And I could make the splat a sphere, a box. And I can make the marker a sphere, a box, a splat, or a different mesh. And we have position and scaling rotation properties here. And here's also a little sneak peek of how we did the reflection, because those are actually just meshes we created from the splats.
Okay.
And on which we select this so that you only see those meshes in the reflections. It's a little trick we use. And well, you could put labels on the markers, so images. You can control the image size. You could have a hover over or click on image. Several things that we're building into this. So when I save this, we have a new marker here. Oh, it's gone because we're now in a sort of time-lapse mode. It will only show at this point.
Yeah, I see it now. I see the marker there.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. And so David Heath has a question about implementing semantics segmentation. And David, I was going to say I hate you because you have access to this tool before I do, but actually you don't, so it's okay. But yeah, David's asking, are you interested in implementing any semantic segmentation or large scale Gaussian capabilities in future releases?
Definitely looking at it and really inspired by it. So yeah, I'm not sure if it will work. Well, it's kind of dependent on if Marc decides to implement it. Marc, Mr. Kellogg, because we're not actively developing this viewer. We're just developing our tools around it. So that would be something really cool to have. At this point, we could have the same effect. So we could segmentize things, but we have to do it in a manual way. So cut away. That's a sort of segmentizing as well. We have to cut it in Play Canvas as well, a different tool.
Okay.
And then we can add them together.
And then you mentioned sort of in passing that you're working on a use case for first responders. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the University of Berkeley, I think they have a lot of startups there. One startup reached out to us and said, "Is there a possibility that we could use your platform to deploy Splats in our application?" So they are creating a sort of dashboard, a first responders dashboard that also has a volume or 3D volume of the space where the disaster or bad thing has happened. And actually, they are creating their own 3D Gaussian splattings, but they need a platform on which to deploy it, and also with a function that they can embed it back into their own application. So at this point, we started developing sort of an API that lets them have a button on their website. They can just press it, upload a splat file, and it will get instantly deployed on our platform, where they can annotate it and add 3D graphics or 3D objects, and at the same time get embed code so that they can visualize it in their application.
Okay. So that's actually that was sort of my next question was going to be, so when customers are using your tool, they can either embed it in their own website, or they can sort of direct people to your website hosted on your site. Those are the sort of the two main ways that people are using it?
Exactly. Yeah, you could embed it seamlessly. Just have all the functionality of the splat markers and annotation.
Okay, and the question popped up, so I'll ask it. You don't have to answer. The question is, can you share the name of the startup in Berkeley?
Rescue site.
Rescue site. Okay.
Yeah, that's the
There
name.
you go. Okay, and then
suddenly they're not interested in us. There's another guy. It's okay.
no, hopefully it's a friendly community. It'll be okay. And just at the very, I'm interested in in the very beginning you talked about using Notch and demos and stuff. If I had a nickel for everyone involved in Gaussian splats who was like a former or recovering Amiga user, or like a demo scene person, I'd be a rich man. So can you talk a little bit more about that? So you were doing live, so for Notch, I imagine is real-time VFX for performance, that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that work?
Yeah, sure. Well, during COVID, a lot of big conferences were done remotely suddenly. So my client had a couple of big clients, IBM, SAP, some big technical players, and they have these yearly conferences that had to be suddenly done remotely. So well, they came up, let's do that in a virtual production. So we made several an office environment and a fireside environment in which the CEO of those companies could have their talk with some guests that they had. So yeah, that was just creating assets in Unreal and porting them to Notch. And sometimes we did it in Unreal with pixel streaming as well. But Notch has a native renderer for Unreal content, or for 3D content. So ended up doing well, really nice work. I can't share anything of that, but
Yeah.
well, that we were creating these environments painstakingly,
Yeah.
as Svein was saying as
Yeah.
well. This could be such a game breaker, or how you say it, in creating these environments pretty fast. You
Yeah.
could have like a turnaround time of a half a day from being out there and having it in the virtual production studio.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. That's like 100 times as fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was also a big part of the appeal of 3D Gaussian splattings for me
Yeah.
personally. Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering, so it sounds like there's a common thread between, what Svein said and what you're talking about. So you're using a mix of basically using Gaussian splats for what they're good at, and then using, meshes and other 3D technologies for what they're good at, and sort of doing a hybrid approach, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was very interesting, Svein's talk, seeing that. It's yeah, inspiring as well.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that for use in virtual production, you'd need to have separated out to a front plate and a back plate. Can did I get that right? I mean, the sort of the foreground plate and the background plate. Do you think that that's feasible with Gaussian splats now to do something like that, to use it for virtual production and separate it into those two plates?
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry if this is a really speculative question.
Sure, it could be really usable because you could just have clipping planes on your several cameras. You just have a front plate camera and a back plate camera, and the actor should be always over the back plate camera,
Yeah,
and then you have your front plate camera, which is sort of a clipping plane, so it only renders until a certain depth.
yeah.
So that's kind of a trick they use already in virtual production, but I don't see a reason why that couldn't be done with Gaussian splattings as well,
Do you think
for
that
sure.
that's already being done?
I've seen a couple of videos, that people are already loading up 3D Gaussian splattings in their virtual production. But I've approached two companies in the Netherlands, and sent them Unreal scenes with 3D Gaussian splattings in them, and being really hyping
Yeah,
it up. And but they're somehow, I don't know, maybe they have like 20 guys painstakingly creating environments every day. They don't want to fire them. Uh, but it's kind of how do you call it? Yeah, they're slow to adapt. It
yeah.
seems like.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's one of the big challenges. I mean, I mean, probably you're the same, right? People are always asking me, can you turn that splat into a textured mesh? Can you send that as a whatever, an FBX file or whatever? And I kind of explained that, well, no, these things don't actually have surfaces, and and all the rest of it. So maybe it's just a matter of time before. Right, there's this sort of, there's already these really well-established pipelines around textured meshes, and maybe it's just a little bit matter of time before either we have bridging technologies or the pipelines for Gaussian splatting develops, like what Florian is building, for instance, which lets you get this more granular control over the splatting.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of flux, and maybe that's also discouraging, uh, like settled companies that already have their production all crystallized out. I don't know,
Yeah.
or maybe it just didn't speak to the right persons. That could be also
Yeah.
the case. Yeah.
Well, I think when you do release your platform, I think there's going to be huge interest in it. And I guess the more people see it and get familiar with it and realize that they can use it today, I think maybe things will accelerate. Yeah. Thanks a lot for your talk. It's really, really cool. And please, please, please release it, because I'm on the mailing list.
Yeah, I
So
saw you.
so please, please, please release it.
We'll
Um,
work. We'll work a bit harder then. Sure.
yeah, that's right. I'm not paying you anything, but please work harder.
No, we
Um,
will.
okay. Thank you very much for joining us. A great talk, and I think there's a lot of interest. An anonymous attendee has sent a YouTube link. I'm not going to click on it because I don't know what it is. But anyway, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank all our guests today. So Florian, Lily, Svein, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a great 2 hours that went really, really quickly. Thank you for your time. Thank you to the audience for staying with us through this